Good afternoon and welcome to the March Ordinary Council meeting. I will now hand over to Councillor Greg James to perform the welcome to country.
Thank you, Mayor Sally and fellow councillors. Firstly, I pay respects to our ancestors. I acknowledge our elders, both past, present and emerging, and I would like to acknowledge the Yorta nations and all its people whose land we meet on today. So on behalf of the Elders Council, the 16 family groups and the 8 respected tribes who proudly share in the status of traditional owners of this land, I say a very warm welcome to this wonderful country and waterways.
Thank you, Councillor James. Thank you. Item 2, acknowledgement. We, Greater Shepparton City Council, acknowledge the Yorta peoples of the land which now comprises Greater Shepparton. We pay our respect to their tribal elders. We celebrate their continuing culture and we acknowledge the memory of their ancestors. Item 3, privacy notice. This public meeting is being streamed live via our Facebook page and made available for public access on our website. Along with the official minutes of this meeting, all care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given in the event that your image is broadcast to the public. It is also assumed that your consent is given to the use and disclosure of any information that you share at the meeting, including personal or sensitive information, to any person who assesses those recordings or minutes, and we do welcome members of the gallery here today as well. Item 4, governance principles. Council considers that the recommendations contained in this agenda give the overarching governance principles stated in section 9(2) of the Local Government Act 2020. These principles are as followed. Councillors, they're numbered 1 to 9 on the agenda, page 6. Item 5, apologies, nil received. Item 6, councillors, do we have any conflicts of interest this afternoon? No conflicts, thank you. Item 7, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. Councillors, are there any minutes of the meeting opposed, previous meeting opposed? No. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone move that? Councillor.
I'll move that the minutes of the 21st of February 2023 council meeting as circulated be confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion. Thank you, Mayor Sally.
Thank you. All in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Item 8, public question time, nil received. Item 9, petitions and petitions, nil received. Councillors, we now go to page 8 of the agenda, item 10.1, Katandra West and District Community Planning Group Action Plan 2023 to 24. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move the recommendation to a motion that the Council receive and note the Katandra West and District Community Planning Group Action Plan 2023 to 2024 as attached.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Summer. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, yes. I just want to congratulate the Katandra West Community Planning Group, on what is a wonderful action plan. This is a real highlight of not only the work that has already been achieved by the Katandra West Community Planning Group, which is quite a lot in a relatively short amount of time, but also the actions that have been created through this plan really show a dedication and a passion for their community. And some of the real highlights that come out of it are those themes around livability and accessibility and a beautiful environment. And I think that's what anyone would want their town and their home to be. And I really congratulate them on what are some very clear and I would argue very achievable actions that we can take to improve that community and the enjoyment of that community for those who live there. But I would be remiss to not mention the elephant in the room, which is the Katandra West, which simply must be discussed anytime we talk about Katandra West. We know that it is the heart of Katandra West. It is what they see every time they drive through that community. We know that this has been a source of angst for that community for a very long time now. And I want to assure you that we are committed to getting an outcome for that. We know there is division within what that might look like, both from the community and the options moving forward. But we are very committed to getting an outcome, whatever that will look like, something that creates closure around this topic for the community to have a heart that it deserves and to be able to move forward with these actions that are in this action plan. We know that this is in some ways holding up the progress of the town, and we do not want that to happen. So I'm very happy to see this action plan here, and we have definitely paid attention to what is in it.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd also like to commend the Katandra West Community Planning Group for their efforts in presenting this document and congratulate them on what they've achieved so far. The newest document lists some very workable requests that shouldn't be too difficult to implement pending budget restraints. And I look forward to hearing the group present in person, which was listed in the report. And likely we'll all use that opportunity to ask for more detail around the future of our heritage building, which is the Katandra West Hall.
Great, thank you, councillor Summer. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. Just reiterating what my fellow councillors have said in regards, obviously, the old hall. It's interesting, we've got 9 councillors here, we probably have 9 different views on maybe what could happen with it. And there's over 500 citizens that live in Katandra West area. Of course, they'd have 500 different views. So, I mean, if it was one set view, then I think it would have been dealt with. So we'll work through that, but what I do feel about Katandra is it's a tremendous community centre that's there. But that's built on having a tremendous community spirit. And that spirit always comes through. Sport is always at the forefront because the Oval's right in the centre of town, of course, but there are other great community activities as well. And I commend the group that's put together a long list of achievements. I love the one, the welcome kit to new residents that arrived out there. It sounds very old school, but it's really wrapping their arms around somebody without smothering them when they arrive. And I sort of certainly feel that new energy and vibrancy every time I'm out there. So congratulations to Katandra West.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Thank you. I also want to congratulate the community, Katandra West community, for coming up with this plan and also working together to identify their own priorities for their community and for their town. And of course, in the plan, they have listed out all the priority items. Some of them are within the remit of council, some of them are not, and some of them are, of course, more related to other levels of government. But I strongly believe that even if those items are not within the remit of council, council still has a role to play in terms of its advocacy. So, for instance, some of the priority items that were listed, they included better telecom infrastructure or better transport solutions for the residents to regional centres. So these are the areas where, even though council does not have a direct role to play, but we do have a strong advocacy role. So I would emphasize on that. And secondly, I feel that, beyond just noting this plan today, at least I would want to make sure that these priorities are actually implemented. So I would be very attentive to the draft budget for the financial year that's coming up, and to see that how some of these priorities are actually getting are addressed to the budget allocations. And of course, last but not least, as my fellow councillors have mentioned about the elephant in the room, which is about the future of the hall, the Katandra West Hall. These are hard decisions and very sensitive decisions as well, and cannot be made in isolation, and they have to be made in view of lots of other things and priorities that we have. But one thing is for sure, that I think all of us here, we want to make a final decision around the future of the hall. We want the community to have that decision and move on and to change the status quo, basically. So yes, I am also looking forward to that conversation very in the near future. Thank you. That's all for now.
Very good. Thank you, councillor Abdullah. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. To reiterate what comments have already been made from our councillors, I really am inspired by the strength of this community and the way that they voice their community and about what their requirements are, what the wants and needs are of that community. And I think that's really admirable, that a smaller community can pull together and say to us, these are the things they want. They came to us and told us with this action plan from the CAT West Group, and they like to call themselves the CAT West Group. They gave us some clear directions on what is needed in the town, and I think that's the spirit of consultation. That's what we want our communities to tell us what they need. The thing, as Seema Abdullah's already pointed out, improving stormwater drains and improving the sewage and about improving the street lights and also the signage, beautifying the signage. Now that's really important for that community to move forward to as well. But I also want to say well done and thank our staff too as well, our council staff, because we went out and consulted with the community on a number of occasions, which is really important for us to get out to our smaller communities, because that's part of who we are and what we need to do. So I wanted to also congratulate our staff on doing that really much needed consultation process. So I just wanted to make mention of that too as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor James. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Ladson.
Yeah, just reiterate and just agree with everybody, all the other council input, and just want to also congratulate Contandra Cricket Club on taking out the A grade and E grade. Just goes to show the community really getting around. It's just a community club, obviously, and yeah, just shout out for that as well, since everything else has been covered. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Councillor Ladson. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adam.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. Yeah, I won't repeat what everyone said because I agree entirely with everyone's opinion here. So there isn't 9 different opinions when it comes to the plan. We're all on the same page. However, we've mentioned the hall. Obviously, that is a bit of I wouldn't call it a white elephant or an elephant at all in the room. This group have a point of view. Council have discussed it, as all councillors have alluded to. We need to make a decision on that in the very near future, obviously. Whatever that is, all these other aspirations they have are all worthy and all logical, and I think we should all be striving to achieve them, without a doubt. The hall is going to be a prickly one. However, I look forward to the very near future where we make a decision on what happens, and whatever is decided, the community then can move forward in attaining and achieving all these other aspirations they have.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? I think there's only 2 of us left.
Yeah,
No, very good. Closing comments, Councillor Spinks.
Just to thank the members of the community planning group that did come in and speak to us. We appreciate their time and coming in. It's one thing to read it in a report, and it's another to hear it directly from them, sharing their passion and their ideas with us. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. We'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 15 of the agenda, item 11.1, contracts awarded under delegation, February 2023. There is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Sommer.
Mayor Sally, I will move that the council, 1, note that no contracts were awarded under delegation pursuant to a formal tender process for the reporting period. 2, note the request for tender advertised but not yet awarded.
Thank you, Councillor Sommer. Can I have Councillor second that motion? Councillor James. Councillor Sommer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I will note that this list is a lot shorter than usual. There's no delegated contracts awarded during this period. I do hope that we continue to follow our principles of transparency and integrity by including all relevant delegated contracts in this section. That's what we have always done, and the motion is quite clear that none have been awarded. So now that the delegations have been increased quite substantially, we should be seeing some bigger ticket items noted in the near future. So I'm happy to see that the ones that are being evaluated includes the Murchison Rec Reserve Design Pavilion. It's currently being evaluated, and my understanding is that we'll assist them in advocating for funding to get the job done. No doubt this is very welcome news for the user groups and for all of us who've seen the dilapidated state of the building firsthand. And I'm also pleased Mooroopna's getting some much needed love in landscaping their main street. So, yeah, I'm also waiting with bated breath for when we can finally see the design of our transfer station upgrade, because that's been a long time coming and should have a significant impact on how much of our waste goes to landfill.
Thank you, Councillor Sommer. Councillor James, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Summers covered most of it, but it's just great to see that the tenders are shared around our community. Again, we've got them in, the tenders are reaching across from Murchison, Mooroopna and Ardmona, Shepparton. Just to point out that the first one, the provision of the internal audit, that is scheduled to close on the 29th of March, and the other 3 attended for currently under evaluation.
Thank you, Councillor James. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Very good. Any closing comments, Councillor Sommer?
No, thank you, Mayor Sally.
Thanks. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I would like to put forward the following recommendation, that the council, and I won't read it all through, but the appointments of the committee members, it's on page 17, 18 and 19 of the agenda, where it lists not only the committee but the councillor representations on all of those.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
I'll second the motion, Mayor Sally.
Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you very much, Mayor Sally. This is a very important one in terms of committees and allocations, a bit like portfolios being dished out to all of the councillors. And it's always done in good faith, and there's some of the committees very eagerly that people want to get on as well. A number of them are through the Local Government Act, where they're mandatory in terms of having a representation on, being the mayor in a lot of cases. Some of them are independent of council as well, and we've got representations on those. And some of them are more likely around the council and run by the council, and they're advisory in nature. They're not decision-making committees, but what they can put forward is recommendations based on a number of things. When we sat down and went through them, obviously some of the committees are mandatory for the mayor, but others, a lot of the councillors have a vested interest in certain areas within the community, interested, or even a skill set that really helps that particular committee as well. Can I point out one as an example is the Audit and Risk Management Committee, where in this particular case we actually have externals, independent externals that come in, probe through our particular finances, and excellent professional ones that come in and help us in that. These committees are valuable, they're worthwhile, they provide tangible voice, they provide experience, and they can provide recommendations that assist us councillors in our decision making. I'd like to thank all the volunteers that belong to these particular committees, because you know, they eagerly put their hand up, they do it voluntarily. This is a collaborative, it is essential, it is democracy, and it is a shared responsibility of our community. So thank you.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Sally, pretty much whatever Anthony just said there was covered. But these committees represent the grassroots engagement of council. When people ask what do councillors do, this is probably one of the most important things that we do actually involve ourselves with. So we get to meet the actual community groups, get to hear their aspirations. We bring that back to council. Most of these advisory groups, we understand that, that's exactly who advise us, then use this information to form our own opinions, and it's a great thing, and I think it's one of the most important roles of a councillor that they can have, and I'm happy to say that I'm on about 5, and I think I'm coming off the bench on 2 of them, which is good, so it's about and I would like to do more, but it's always as Anthony said, always a battle of councillors wishing to get on certain ones as opposed to the others. But it's a good, healthy contest, and it's great to see that everyone's really excited about these committees.
Very good. Thank you, councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Ms. Ali. It's so great that we've got such an active group of councillors. There's no shortage of people who are willing to step in where others, such as myself, cannot. I did think I was going onto the Calder Woodburn committee, but unfortunately even that one seems to clash. External life commitments almost invariably clash with these committee times, which is so unfortunate. However, over my 10 years on council, I have sat on a large majority of these committees and found them informative and engaging. There's always something to learn. And no doubt everyone gets as much out of them as I did, and I watch vicariously from the sidelines as you all enjoy helping the community achieve their goals. And I haven't given up on Calder Woodburn. Hopefully I'll be sitting there alongside Councillor Brophy in the future.
Councillor Summer. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, we will, closing comments, Councillor Brophy? Anything?
No, just well done, and look, thank you. I thank the volunteers, but also the councillors, as Councillor Adams said, that we put our hand up. It's a robust discussion about getting on which particular council, but well done, because it is a huge time commitment. People see us out in the community, they see council meetings like this and at briefings, but there's an awful lot that goes behind the scenes in terms of those committees as well. So well done to all the council.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 25 of the agenda, item 11.3, February 2023 monthly financial report. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Dobson.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move that that the council receive and note the February 2023 monthly financial report as attached.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Can I please have a councillor second that motion? Once, Councillor Ladson. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to that motion?
Yes, thank you. The monthly financial report consists of about 7 different statements. The first one is the accounting surplus statement, which shows an accounting surplus of nearly 29.5 million. It shows an accounting surplus of 29.497 million, but taken away from that, the capital grants of nearly 41 million and contributed assets just over 11 million means that the operating deficit towards the end of the year is going to be somewhere about 19.5 million. This is a tad better than the 21.6 million that was budgeted at the start of the financial year, but not quite as good as the 18.27 in the last quarter. A couple of interesting things that we find going in here is that the loans and borrowings, the year-to-date actual, this is the loans and borrowings as a percentage of rates. And this to me is probably one of the more important reports that there is. But it tells us that the target band is between 20% and 60% of our rates to go to loans and borrowings. Well, we're at actually 22.5%, which is way below the band rate, and the budget of 21.23%. So we're tracking very well in terms of loans and borrowings, and one of the good things is, of course, with interest rates going up, we get the benefit of that with some of our investments that we've got. Financial health is or liquidity is the other one that I look at, and the year-to-date actual liquidity percentage is 191.64% of current assets v current liabilities. Now, this, of course, is inflated to a certain extent by the fact that we account for the whole of the rates base coming in at the start of the year. That really starts to erode after a while, and we'll see an increase in cash in the bank rather than receivables. But that's an interesting setup, and it means that we're healthy. But I think more importantly, I think it is now time. We've been now 8 months into this financial year. We are starting to look at what's going on next year, and I think not only ourselves but the public's got to know that the council, because of COVID and the floods and all the other things that have happened over recent times, is really putting pressure on all our financial obligations. And I think that we've just got to agree that we're going to be quite conservative in our outlook, and some of the stories that we heard today will prove that. So that's going to be the lesson going forward. A couple of loans and borrowers talked about that. Asset renewal, we'd like to have in excess of 100% of assets renewal against amortisation or depreciation. We're tracking okay at the moment, but the outlook means that we'll probably be a bit below that 100%, and I'd like to see that improved along the way. Rates debtors, we're currently, our rates outstanding are 34 million as against 30 million, and that's, for the public's point of view, that's just to let everybody know that when the floods were on, we made certain arrangements with those people who have been flood affected, and we took a rain check on when some of those rates had to be paid. So there's a bit more outstanding than this time next year, but there's no doubt that in the next 3 months that those rates will come on board. But we're able to do that to help our ratepayers out over the flood period. I don't think that there's much more that we can talk about, Mayor Sali, but I'll leave it at that.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Ladson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I'll just point out Councillor Dobson's pun about a rain check on the flood.
Rain check.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ladson. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. Again, I think Councillor Dobson covered it quite well with all the detail. Just quickly though, these monthly reports are vital to councillors to inform us of our progress. We must keep on top of these things. It's good to get it every month. We've had challenges, that's been pretty obvious. However, they're not insurmountable. We're moving ahead, we've put things in place and they're starting to work. What interests me, as Jeff said, is the projected ending liquidity. That's well within the desired range at 136%. I think that's one of the key indicators that we must keep our eye on, amongst others as well. So I'm quite happy with the way we're moving forward.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, none opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 29 of the agenda, item 12.1, Shepparton North Structure Plan. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Mover. Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I'll move that the council, one, note the conclusion of the community engagement process associated with the Shepparton North Issues, Opportunities and Emerging Challenges paper, August 2022. Two, receive and note the conversation report, Shepparton North Issues, Opportunities and Emerging Challenges paper, November 2022, summarising all submissions received or heard in relation to the Shepparton North Issues, Opportunities and Emerging Challenges paper, August 2022 as attached. 3, adopt the Shepparton North Structure Plan, March 2023 as attached. 4, begin preparing a planning scheme amendment to implement the structure plan by including it into the Greater Shepparton Planning Scheme.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Can I have a councillor second that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Councillor Spinks. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I think the motion itself is pretty self-explanatory. It's just really responsible planning, and we've done this at the behest of the Minister for Planning, who suggested this back in May 2021. So it shows a great future for North Shep, and I am behind it as much as I can be.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Dobson.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I note in the plan, and I'm looking now at the plan that's in the agenda, and it shows, amongst other things, the inclusion of the Wanganui High School. And there is probably some, I don't think there's any, we're not concerned too much about it, but I'd be interested how we're going to handle that, because it still could be, and probably will be, a school going forward, but it's not in the narrative, along with the report. In the narrative, there is no special mention, and I'd just like to point that out, and perhaps whether or not there is any material difference, because it could be considered a school, or we suggesting that it won't be. So that's the only query that I would have, but the rest I support.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dobson. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adam.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sali. I think this plan, we've been discussing it for quite a while, it's been formulated. I think all councillors are aware of it, we all agree with it. Well, I hope we do, at least. And I think it's coming at a really good time. As an example, I see that Grant Court is obviously in this overlay, and due to the fantastic result of our North End Bakehouse winning the vanilla slice of the... That's fantastic for the business and for Shepparton, obviously. But obviously that creates more clients for them, and that's caused a little bit of pain in that court. So I think hopefully this plan will address that as we move forward and try and put things in place that will make it more amenable for all users of that area.
Very good, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Closing comments, Councillor Summer?
No, thank you, Mayor Sali.
Thank you, councillors. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 36 of the agenda, item 12.2, Asia Fruit Logistica Delegation 2023. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I'd like to put forward the recommendation. The council authorise the Mayor, Councillor Shane Sali and Chief Executive Officer Peter Harriet, delegation which represents Greater Shepparton, the Asia Fruit Logistica in Hong Kong, China in September 2023.
Very good.
Yeah.
Didn't realise he was going to now.
I've got my hand up ready for the seconding, just so you know.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Can I have a councillor second that motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sali. I gladly second the motion.
No, you were going. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, certainly if the Chief Executive Officer doesn't want to go and the Deputy Mayor does, then... Anyway, yes, absolutely. In regards to this particular motion, we have seen a delegation before, or representatives before from Council, be it the Mayor, be it the CEO, be it the Economic Development area or Sustainability area as well, the Director there, back in 2017, 2018, 2019. 20 and 21, we had COVID. And we had actually nominated late last year that our Mayor be part of the delegation that went to Bangkok, Thailand. Yeah. However, our mayor and council officer at the time, or council officers at the time, opted out of last year to support the community in the floods, because it was in and around that particular point in time. So that was very magnanimous of doing that. As crucial as that particular meeting would be, that you would need, certainly needed here. So thank you for that. Look, this is crucial in terms of marketing and leadership opportunities to maintain and boost our trade exports. Being held in Hong Kong, China this particular year, given the last few years of not only COVID, political differences that we've had as well, but also the economic challenges, this is really a must that you actually attend this particular year. As I always say, decisions are made by those who turn up. So if we turn up, we're in the game. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Yeah, look, this started quite a few years ago. As much of a great salesman as you are, Mr. Mayor, I don't know whether you're going to go and sell food over there. However, the symbolic gesture of you being there supporting a $328 million industry, which is at the core of Shepparton's economy, requires you, sir, to be there, and the CEO and whoever else may be enticed to go. I know that many local producers attend each year, and just to see your face there gives them the motivation to keep going, to know that the behind them, the council is behind them. For the small amount of outlay that it really costs us, I think it's probably one of the best value ticket items that we actually produce as a council. So I fully and wholeheartedly support it.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I think that you probably should include a First Nations person on that trip too as well. So,
Uncle Lance.
Look, this is imperative for our region to have a presence at this expo at Hong Kong in September. Local fruit growers and businesses that revolve around this lucrative industry will have an expectation of us being there, and it's really important for us to be there as well. We're talking about $1 billion plus industry, and the financial costs associated with this trip is insignificant compared to the returns that we will get from this, to be there, to put our face and to put our product on the international market. And I think that that's really important for us to have that. I think forums like this expo is the opportunity for us to be entrepreneurial with our business. We do that locally, we do it within our own state, but we also need that the international market to once again highlight what we do grow here in this country is great, and in this region we are one of the major suppliers of fruit and the fruit industry. So you know, our mayor is the perfect delegate to be attending, and I'm not saying that our CEO isn't, but our mayor, given that the background of family connections, etc., to be attending this expo, and given that also that he has a great business acumen about himself, a perfect representative from as far as our council's point of view. So I support this recommendation highly.
Thank you, Councillor James. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you. I will admit I'm hesitant to support this motion, not from the worthiness of the trip. I am a big believer in council's role being that which isn't filled anywhere else in community, and this particular trip is something that council uniquely can contribute, and I think it should. But I do note that we are entering into discussions around the upcoming budget. It's been alluded to earlier that do look at sums as small as $30,000 and whether that needs to be, can continue to fit into our budget. So I do think that this is worthy and I intend to support it, but I just want to raise that it is every decision that we make of even these smaller amounts that needs to be just looked at through that lens, and I just want to highlight that we're doing that now. So.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. So unless you're a fruit grower, this is rarely a popular item in the community. No doubt some people imagine councillors living it up on overseas trips while they're there pondering their next utility bill and the price of living. However, the trips, they're not all roses and honey. This is a working delegation intended to progress local fruit growing opportunities across international borders. Past efforts have made substantial inroads, and I imagine this time will be no different, if not more successful. When fruit growers succeed in business, we gain substantial economic flow on to the broader community, which means all of us benefit. This trip doesn't cost as much as some may think. In fact, it's quite economical. And I'm really pleased that we can recommence now that the pandemic lockdown is over and there are no floods. So good luck, Mayor Sali and CEO.
Bon voyage.
Very good. Thank you, councillor Summer. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? I will, just very quickly. Obviously, at this point, there seems to be support to send Peter and I off. He only just found out, obviously, now. But look, it is important, and there is already a lot of interest. The delegation that usually goes to Hong Kong, and councillor Adam has been on it, I think, a number of times as well, will share how important our connection is to the Asian market, and obviously not only being there for our own community representation, but to reinforce our position as the food bowl of Australia. So I think it's important that we continue to invest in this space. It's a small amount in the scheme of things, being $1 billion industry to our region. So I thank councillors for showing support in sending Peter and I off, hopefully once the hands go up. So closing comments, councillor Brophy?
I'd just like to give some advice in making sure that you get your application in early with China. Thank you.
Very good, councillor Brophy. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 41 of the agenda, item 13.1, Resource Recovery Collective Hume Tender Award. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put forward a motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Thank you. I would like to put the recommendation on page 41 as a motion, and I'll read the recommendation. The council award contract number 2312 in a way for an initial period of 7.5 years with an option to extend for further 7.5 years. Number 2, award contract number 2313 to Western Composting for an initial period of 7.5 years with an option to extend for a further 7.5 years. And number 3, authorize the Chief Executive Officer to enter negotiations and execute the contract documents as required.
Thank you, councillor Abdullah. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Dobson.
I'll second that motion as read.
Thank you. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you. So as we have the agenda report in front of us, the executive summary clearly highlights that what is this report relating to. It's basically about council's participation through a memorandum of understanding in the Resource Recovery Collective Hume, which was a regional collaborative tender for waste and recycling services. And after going through the whole process, this process is towards its last stages, where it is now seeking council's endorsement of the recommendations from the appointed tender evaluation panel. The report in front of us, it also highlights all the contract details, tenderers, when was the tender released, the timeline, the tender evaluation process, and the formation of the tender evaluation panel members. It also highlights what some of the evaluation criteria that was prepared by the project, by the Resource Recovery Collective Hume project for and objectives that it was aiming to achieve. Obviously, and as we will notice in the later part of the agenda, there's also a confidential report that was circulated to councillors for review. Basically, after reading all the reports, after going through the information, having read the confidential report, which demonstrates the rigor and robustness of the collaborative waste and resource recovery tender process, and which also demonstrates the rigor of the probity process and the probity report that was shared with us. I have carefully read all of that. I have looked at the scores that were allocated by the tender evaluation panel, the qualitative and quantitative resource. So overall, on the basis of this information that is in front of me, I do not have any grounds to object the recommended options. So I support the recommendations. And just to sort of elaborate further on why I'm supporting the recommendations. Yes, I've not seen the actual tender response, but as councillors, we have got all the information. We have got the tender evaluation panel's report. And as I've said, I've carefully read that. On the basis of the scores. The recommended tenders are Cleanaway and Western Composting. So my endorsement is basically based on the best of my abilities with the information that is in front of you, and to rely on the panel's expertise, their judgment and skills in allocating scores and reaching a consensus and on the recommendations. I am relying on the integrity, rigor and robustness of the process. I've seen all the documents, I've read all the reports, and I am comfortable with the process, with the probity process, with the robustness of the process. As I've said earlier, I do not have sufficient grounds to reject the officer's recommendations, and also rejecting the recommendations of the evaluation panel arbitrarily and on the basis of some perhaps last minute external pressures, in my opinion, will expose this council to risks, to legal complaints, and it can be deemed gross negligence on the part of my and our council duties. So I just want to remind that the risk of formal complaint or process challenge by any unsuccessful tenderer based on unfair treatment or any arbitrary decision making in favor of a non-recommended tenderer is significant. So we have to look at this matter from all angles. And of course, if we do not adopt the recommendation today, we may have to start the whole tender process again. Our current contract expires in October 2023, so obviously we do not have enough time to undertake this whole, it's a very complicated and complex, lengthy process of this of tender. So we'll have to go through, perhaps we'll have to go through all the steps again, and the delay that will be caused will basically be, I think, will be a disservice to our community, because if we do not make right decisions at the right time, we are actually not doing any favors to our community, basically. So as councillors, I feel that we are here to represent our community, but we are also here to make best decisions in the interest of our community. After evaluating everything, after evaluating the matter from all angles, and after evaluating the complete information. So that is where the challenge is, and I know that things can get a bit sort of, people will have different opinions and perspectives, but I'm just letting it out there that why at this point in time I fully support this decision, and I also understand that the unsuccessful tenderers will be given all the feedback, but at this point in time, I think I have enough information to support this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sali. There's very little that I could add to that very comprehensive report by Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Abdullah and I were both on the Golden Valley Waste and Resource Recovery Group board for 6 odd years or whatever it was, and during that time, in the latter part of that, this process was mooted and commenced with the guidance of that board. Not so much the board itself, but the work within DELF. There are, I think, 8 councils plus the Alpine Management Commission who were involved in this process. That the government suggested that it would be better as a procurement exercise that the councils in the Hume area got together to get the best possible result for their ratepayers, and that's what we're here to do, is to get the best possible result for the ratepayers. Recycling Victoria provided significant resourcing and financial support towards the management of the Resource Recovery Collective, Hume, that's what it was called, that's the official name. This has included funding the cost of specialist probity, independent probity, I might say, legal, technical and procurement resources. And I think we've got to keep in mind that this is not a decision solely at the behest of Greater Shepparton City Council, but the result of the tender process was the result of a collective of 8 councils through that process that they went. There's nothing more that I can say that Councillor Abdullah has already said it very well, and that's why I will support the motion.
Thank you, councillor Dobson. Are there any councillors?
Mayor Sally, could I please foreshadow a motion?
Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Adam.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. Speaking against the motion sounds a bit harsh. It's not so much, I'm not questioning the expertise of the panel or the actual individual companies involved in this contract. I've got a slightly unique perspective. I obviously came onto council again 6 months ago. I wasn't part of the initial memorandum of understanding and the discussions around that. Only just recently, to be honest, been able to read some documents just in the last couple of days. I was under the impression that council entered into an agreement with the Hume Regional, these other councils. I think there was 12. 12, yeah, I think 13, one dropped off. Is that correct? Yes. I can't find enough information. I'm sure it's out there. I just haven't found it yet because I haven't had the time to see what the other councils did in response to their the evaluations that presented. I did find a little piece on the actual MOU that clearly states that, and this is my understanding, I could be wrong, and I'll read this quickly, it's only 2 lines. Once the MOU has been executed, withdrawal from the tender process could not occur until the completion of the tender. Fair enough. The participating councils and Alpine Resorts are not compelled to award contracts based on the submissions received via the tender, but are committed to presenting the tender evaluation / report recommendations to the respective delegated authority of their councils. I don't even know who that is. Is that us as the council? Why shouldn't it say that rather than delegated authority? So I would have thought this would have been, an evaluation would have been presented to us so we can make a decision on whether we accept that evaluation, then move on to potentially awarding contracts. That's me potentially being slightly pedantic about the whole process. That said, again, I'm not making any judgment in respect to Cleanaway or any other company at all. I have had no conversations or engagement at all with any tenderer or prospective tenderer at all. I just feel I've got to make a informed decision, and I believe personally, me, as a chap who came in late to this discussion, am not completely informed, and I'm hoping that I could do that over the next week or so or two, and maybe make a decision further down the track, which may actually be exactly the recommendation as presented today. That's why I'm.
Councillor Adam, are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? No?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Summer?
I'm going to speak against it largely because I understand that there has been a process that's been followed, but when we follow something to the absolute letter and still have residual questions that are not answered, to me that feels like we haven't had a robust debate. We are being told to vote in a certain way. Now, I've never particularly been favourable towards the approach of being told how I should vote, and I am objecting because I feel like there's gaps in my knowledge that need. I just have a couple of questions on email that have been sitting there a while, even in regards to the frequency going that far back. And I know I've been objecting this whole way through, so it's probably not surprising that I'm objecting again. But this is 15 years. It's a substantial contract. I mean, we really want to get it right and need time to consider it. Yeah, we haven't even assessed the trial yet, and here we are locking things in. So I can't support it at this time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Summer. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Spinks?
Thank you. I'll speak in support of the motion. This has been we approved this process to take place. A huge amount of resources and people who know exactly what they're doing have taken part in this process of what is a very standard, in a lot of ways, standard tender process. People put their tenders in, they went through a weighting criteria and a result has come out of it. We've been able to look at the weighting, we've been able to see the results, and we can see why this particular company has been put forward as the recommended awarder. For us to, this is not a community consultation. This is a legal process. There is not and cannot be any favoritism or any personal opinions around what the outcomes should be. It's very black and white and very much laid out in front of us. This is a big contract, and I understand why this is larger than the run-of-the-mill process that we would go through. But the rigor and the transparency and the process is as solid as anything else, and in some ways a lot more than because of it being so much larger. I think it is in some ways arrogant of us to think that we could do it better, or that we somehow need to personally, it's almost like we personally want to do this process. It's been done. It's there in front of us to make a decision on. I support this process. I support this motion.
Councillor Spinks. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, I just want to add some comments around, obviously, with Councillor Adam and Councillor Summer raising some concerns around requiring more info, and I guess it's my responsibility to ensure that the information is presented in a way that can allow you to make an informed decision. And although a process has been undertaken, and I agree in principle with what's been said by Councillor Dobson, Abdullah and Spinks, that I get a little bit concerned that post this point that if some questions haven't been answered, that we can perhaps offer ourselves an opportunity to get those questions answered to ensure that all councillors can make an informed decision. So I'm probably not comfortable in supporting this motion based on what's been tabled at this point from a couple of councillors as well. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Would you like some closing comments, Councillor Abdullah?
Yes, I would just like to say, as Councillor Spinks has highlighted, that this is not a community consultation process. Councillors were kept in the loop straight from the very get-go. There were several opportunities, briefings, emails, and you name it. It was not as if officers were not listening to our concerns or feedback. We have had briefings at different stages of this process. We knew the MOU we were participating in. We knew the expectations at the end of it. We have seen all the reports and all the, as I've said, the integrity and the robustness of the process. Beyond that, we cannot go. We do not have the tender response in front of us. That was the part of the process. We have to rely on the report that is in front of us. We have to rely on so many different aspects of like probity and the panel, the participation from all the other councils and our tender evaluation panels, their skills and their expertise and the weightage that they have allocated. That was all transparent to us. So I feel that this is going to be, if today we are not making a decision in support of the recommendation, this council is actually doing a disservice to our community. We will be delaying the process. There is a time constraint attached to it. I have said it earlier, our current contracts are expiring in October. And to go through this whole process again, it will be a process of a different nature. It cannot be the same collaborative tender process. However, there will be many objections and complaints processes that can come out of this collective tender process, and the risks are there. We have discussed all of that at length before, so I'm really quite disappointed, and I'm also very not sure that why we have to delay this decision. And I understand that we don't want to just say yes to everything that is coming in front of us, but we all have the opportunity. We have had the opportunity to ask the questions. We have asked so many questions. We have evaluated it thoroughly. So I just feel that objection for the sake of objection is not the right thing to do. It's not going to serve our community. And well, that's all that I can say. What more has to say? What more we have to say?
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Motion lost. That now brings me to your foreshadowed motion, councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Saleh. I would like to move consideration of the agenda item 13.1, Resource Recovery Collective Hume Tender Award, be deferred until the next scheduled ordinary council meeting.
So, yeah,
What have we just considered it?
Point of
Yeah, point of order.
clarification.
no. So his foreshadowed motion, yeah, that motion is lost, but he can still table to defer that. He can put whatever motion he
Can I give you
wants.
some advice in relation to it?
Or can I get,
Yeah, you go.
oh, no, well, hang on. I'll get clarification through governance if there's a concern with that.
Well, I've got a separate concern in relation to it, not a governance rule concern.
Well, we can only,
Got a,
no, well, hang on a sec. We can only, so the motion was lost. There's a now foreshadowed motion that's been proposed, so we just need clarity on that.
and I just want to give you some advice in relation to risk associated with what you're proposing.
I don't even know 100% what he's proposing. He only just read it out and I need him to just clarify what he's doing, but
Okay.
there was a point of order called, so I had to stop. So can I just get clarification on exactly what your motion is? And then I can get clarification through the CEO, from governance, whether that motion stands, or whether your foreshadowed motion can be acted upon. And then you can come in for any associated risk with that. He may foreshadow his.
Say that, otherwise
Can't.
way.
That's okay.
He should have voted to lay on the table prior to this going.
I reckon.
Should have said so.
I know.
Before we even got into it.
Yeah,
Could have voted for
My
it.
hand up for a
yeah.
Sorry, we're just going to suspend standing orders until we can get this clarification for 10 minutes and we'll come back. Thank you. Council meeting will now resume. Councillor Brophy, your foreshadowed motion that you would like to table.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. I would like to move that consideration of the agenda item 13.1, Resource Recovery Collective Hume Tender Award, be deferred until on or before the 17th of April 2023.
Okay, thank you. Is everyone clear with that motion? Do we need him to repeat it? All right, can I please have a councillor second that motion?
Second the motion, Mayor Sarley.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you very much, Mayor Sarley. Look, we entered into a process, as other councillors have stipulated, and it was a process which was a memorandum of understanding only. And that was about 12 months ago, after consideration given and deferred a number of council meetings until then. We also entered into it with 12 other regional shires or councils. Of that, we were told it was a collaborative memorandum of understanding, being the tendering process. We now have what we call as a collective in terms of the tender award. Now, just to make it clear, this is an individual council contracts. So it's not a collective contract that is one contract for the whole region. It is that, therefore, potentially 12 different outcomes could result from this particular tendering process when it goes back to each individual council for that. Rightly so, Councillor Adam did point out in regards to the guidelines with that the participating council are not compelled to award the contracts based on the submissions received via the tender, but are committed to presenting the tender evaluation to the authority, being ourselves, which has been done, which is terrific. Can I also please thank the Director of Infrastructure for offering to both myself and to other councillors the time to ask a number of questions. Thank you very much for that. However, reading through the documents and through the ratings and the analysis, there are still a number of unresolved queries that require some comprehensive answers and understanding.
Point of clarification. I'm sorry to interrupt. How can we be attempting to do this again? That was just voted down. How are we allowed to do this through our governance rules?
Well, we just sought clarification on that.
But Councillor Brophy is requesting that we do this item again in a month's time.
Please.
But we've already now just made a decision around this item. How can we do the same item again in 1 month?
Yeah, I'm happy for the CEO to clarify that.
Yeah, so Councillor Spinks, that's what we're partly just checking then. There is provision under the governance rules for the CEO and the Mayor to determine if a matter is urgent enough, we can bring it back within the 3 months. So we've just checked that with governance.
And so this is happening under that?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
Proceed.
Thank you. Look, this is essentially, if you look at it, a massive contract that we're looking at, probably the biggest one that we'll ever face. And it is upwards of, $75 million if you look with a set of contracts tying council in, at least for the next 7.5 years, plus perhaps 7.5 further years, in effect 15 years we're looking at. So it is a big contract. We don't need to be hasty, but rather we need to be comforted that all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted. Therefore, an additional period of time will hopefully provide councillors with that surety. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, don't want to add too much more, but and I won't speak on behalf of Councillor Ledson. My personal unique situation is I came in late to this process. I think if I had been part of the resolution of the MOU, I may not have actually supported it based on what I know now. However, that was done. I needed more information. I really honestly do that. As I said, this is not an indictment on any of these companies, their ability to perform the work or not. I'm just not comfortable that I fully understand the process that's occurred via the MOU. And again, I'm not casting any aspersions on our guys. I'm sure everything's done correctly. I just have to be convinced of that and know that my decision is fully informed, not partially informed.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Ms. Sally. Some commentary today makes me think that there really is a basic lack of understanding around this tender, just as there was a basic lack of understanding around waste decisions during the last meeting. As stated, it is not a collective contract. This is an individual contract for Greater Shepparton, and we do have discretion. We can bounce it around before making a decision. It's not a collaborative tender as such. And one thing, though, that did concern me is that it's a memorandum of understanding only. That I don't like, because the integrity of a memorandum of understanding is supposed to be quite high and carry a lot of strength. So potentially we should have done all this due diligence back at the very, very beginning and understood clearly that ours is an individual contract, not a collective contract around the Hume. I don't believe that this will cause any disservice to the community. I don't believe there'll be any delays. There will be interim arrangements if it got to the stage where we still can't make a decision. I don't believe it's been entirely transparent. As I mentioned, there are unanswered questions. I don't believe it's been entirely rigorous. Potentially our procurement guideline criteria and weighting on how we award tenders is not quite up to scratch. And unfortunately, the commentary around this being black and white is potentially true. And that concerns me also, because there are always shades of grey. We should be able to explore those shades of grey. Not getting answers to the questions, having people locked down and be too scared to even have the conversation, I do not like. So for me, I just haven't enjoyed any of this, but I am going to support essentially laying it on the table for a short period while we can just regather, reassess, and hopefully move forward with a bit more transparency, a bit more collaboration in terms of information sharing, and get to the bottom of what is supposed to be a really great outcome for the community with a very long-term, significant and expensive contract. So I don't want to be told what, anyway, I'm going to leave it at that, but I support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, councillors will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Motion carried. Councillors, we now go to page 44 of the agenda, item 14, confidential management reports, and there is one there under 14.1, designation of confidentiality of information. Attachments. The following report attachments have been designated confidential by the Chief Executive Officer under Governance Rule 107 and in accordance with the definition of confidential information in the Local Government Act 2020, the Act. Item 13.2, Resource Recovery Collective Hume Tender Award. These documents contain information which is consistent with the definition of private commercial information, being information provided by a business, commercial or financial undertaking that, if released, would unreasonably expose the business, commercial or financial undertaking disadvantage. Item 15, documents for signing and sealing, nil received. Item 16.1.1 on page 45 of the agenda, councillors. Councillor activities, February 2023. There is a recommendation. Can I please have that put forward as a motion? Councillor Adam.
Councillor Sally, I'd like to move the motion that the council receive and note the summary of the councillors' community interactions, informal meetings of councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Ladson. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just to say there's many there's a list of, I don't know, 30 or 40, probably more. Once again, we say this every month. It's just a great indication of how councillors interact.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to appreciate all the things that councillors get invited to, and in particular the flood recovery morning tea with Richmond Football Club, and acknowledge that the time that Richmond Football Club spent in the community, not just for, to come and see councillors, obviously, but they got out in amongst the community. And I'm not a Richmond Tigers fan, but yeah, go Bombers. Thank you.
Councillor Ladson, very good. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Just on a couple of items, correctly, Councillor Adem went through and mentioned that there were a myriad of particular committees and events. Things are really hotting up for this particular year. Can I make mention that, yes, as much as I had a bit of a bromance with some of the Richmond Football Club on that particular morning tea, they were here for a really good reason, and they were here to talk about the flood recovery. We had some terrific speakers present to them as to why the why the effects of the flood had happened on this particular community and the after effect as well. And it did have an emotional impact on the coaches and the leadership team that were represented there. The Calder Woodburn Memorial Avenue Advisory Committee are now up and running, and I'd love to have Councillor Summer come along to that meeting, as she highlighted there before, but that had been in recess for a number of years, so it's really good to see that that's up and running. They've got a terrific chair of that in John Head, and they've got an incredible amount of expertise and people who are very passionate that are on that particular advisory committee. So that, and maybe one more I'd like to mention, which is the Vibrant Reserve Pavilion redevelopment, the official opening there, and of course the South Shepparton Community House, which is now located down there as well. It's a terrific place for the community. They're out of from Service Street, the little housing commission house that they had, into a really terrific facility down there, and well done to all the councillors turning up to that.
Good, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adam, any closing comments?
No, thank you, Mayor Sally.
Very good, thank you. We'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 47 of the agenda, item 16.2.1, Murray-Darling Association Region 2 report. There is a recommendation. Can I please have that put forward as a motion? Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. On page 47, I would like to move the recommendation that the report from Councillor Jeff Dobson be noted.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, second that motion. Councillor James. Councillor Latson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor Sally.
Very good. Councillor James, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Yeah, I just wanted to say Councillor Dobson's, again, his commitment towards Murray-Darling Association Region 2, which encompasses our region, is again exemplary. His passion for the waterways and in our area, and the way that he presents our position at this level, and also sitting at the peak decision-making process is what we need in this area, and his work on that and his passion, needs to be congratulated for his efforts and what he does too as well. The thing that really inspires me about Councillor Dobson's connection with this association is his passion for Indigenous and also about traditional owners too as well. So not only does he bring the concerns of our community to this forum, but he also brings in First Nations as well. So that, and I thank him again as well.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor. So just very briefly, it's so important. Water and resource here in the Golden Valley is incredibly important, and we do need champions. And I don't want to embarrass Councillor Dobson, but I mean, previously, obviously, Councillor Dennis Patterson had a vested interest in this particular area. But we've had people like Russell Powell and people like Susanna Sheed and David McKenzie who have really been at the forefront and absolute champions for our region, on the Murray-Darling Association, particularly Region 2, but really stepping up. And I put Councillor Dobson in that same hallmark as being a real champion for our region in water. Thank you.
Very good, Councillor Brophy. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Summer.
Just that it's an informative report, and I thank Councillor Dobson for his continued efforts in this sector.
Good. Thank you, Councillor Summer. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, I'll just follow on from what's been said as well, and thank Councillor Dobson for his constant advocacy and arguably the most important item that would ever come across our table and for our region as well. And I'm starting to believe that although it's very important and the reports are good, that you're a fan of self-praise, and I thank you and congratulate you on continue to do so. I don't think you've got much more to say after this, so very good. Any closing comments, Councillor Latson?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd just like to reiterate and applaud Councillor Jeff Dobson for the time that he's put into the Murray-Darling Basin Authority, and the real stickler for policy and detail, so it's shown in the report.
Very good.
Thank you.
Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 49 of the agenda, item 17.1, notice of motion 2/2 bike jumps reference group. There is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Summer.
Notice of motion, put it forward.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move that the council, one, present a summary of results from the bike jumps reference group that was formed in 2020 to assist council to develop dirt jumps and cycling infrastructure within Greater Shepparton. Two, receive the summary that will be presented no later than April 2023 in order to inform the 2023-2024 budget. And three, advise councillors of any specific working groups formed as a result of this reference group and their outcomes.
Councillor Summer, thank you. Can I have someone second that motion? Councillor Ladson? Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you very much, Mayor Sally. This motion is intended to source information from the reference group that was set up in 2020. I've raised this request during briefings, and I have taken this step because we haven't yet been fully informed of the outcomes. So we're now in 2023 and contemplating the next budget in the middle of our term without a full understanding of the propositions delivered by the reference group and any subcommittees. Pleasingly, there is an indication that council will follow through with delivering dirt bike zones, but as we all know, nothing is ever set in stone, and we seem to be dangerously close to perhaps, building a pump track maybe, which is an awesome standalone project, so don't get me wrong, but it shouldn't be in lieu of delivering what the community actually wants. Never in my entire time on council have I seen such strong public support for any other issue. The message loud and clear was just let kids be kids. Everything in life carries some risk if that's the problem. The trick is to balance the level of risk with positive public outcomes. Done right, we can find a safe space for this hobby and ensure safety guidelines are followed. If council was completely risk averse, we would not have dog parks, skate parks, any sporting activity, or playgrounds with anything over 1 metre high. So right now, kids are building jumps and they're building them further and further away. It doesn't eliminate the activity, but it does increase the risk. So I argue that dirt jumps offer more benefit than harm because it gets kids outdoors, it teaches them social skills, it builds resilience. And I do want people to be aware that this issue has not fallen off the radar. So for the sake of just gathering some more information that came from all the work we've done in the past from a community group, I'm hopeful that you can all please support this motion.
Very good, Councillor Summer. Thank you. Councillor Ladson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to congratulate Councillor Summer on moving the notice of intent for the bike jumps and the detail within, and just want to say that it's an important project to be considered because leading up to the Commonwealth Games, we're going to have world-class BMX riders coming to Greater Shepparton, which is exciting to look forward to. But being able to facilitate safely, obviously, is something that council should be strongly considering. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ladson. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to applaud Councillor Summer as well. I know this has been a bit of a bugbear for 5 or so years for Councillor Summer. And it resulted from some, let's say, illegal activities that may have been happening in the local bushland. But I think, as Ladson said, safety is paramount in this whole process. So I'm looking forward to seeing the actual results of this reference group, council's response to that, because yes, I agree, it's a great activity and the kids should be allowed to do it, but we've just got to balance the safety aspect and the environmental impact that it may have on our bushland as well. So looking forward to seeing a positive response to this reference group, and hopefully we can do something in the future.
Very good, Councillor. Any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Yeah, the initial proposal for the bike jump was identified couple of years ago. And it wasn't suitable, as it actually did encroach onto cultural land, et cetera, and we had discussions with the group and et cetera. So I'm pleased that that has come back onto the table. There is a need for this activity, and it's not just our youth. There are a number of adults that are riding out there too as well, and tracks have been formed even with our youth, with adults actually out there, shovels and et cetera. So I think the smartest way for us is to be on the front foot and create a location. I would like to see us choose a location that suits our environment itself. As you know, caring for country and et cetera, environment is so important, and I want to make sure that we've got those the liability measures into place, and we've got enough signage, et cetera. So it protects council because a lot of those sites will be obviously through on Parks Victoria and Delp. Or if it is on council land, well, then obviously we'd need to put in some protection and some barriers for us from a public point of view. But obviously adhering to safety and build on what's coming our way in 2026, which has a bike theme for the game. So I think it'd be very silly of us if we don't, be proactive in this area. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor James. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? I'll just very quickly congratulate you, Councillor Summer, on obviously having this tabled. It reminds me of your passion towards the Pakenham Street upgrade, which you kept driving and that eventually got done. And this is a similar sort of circumstance where you're really passionate about seeing what you believe is a positive outcome. And I'm sure that the more information that will come from here will help support some sort of development in that space as well. So good on you for doing that. Closing comments?
No, thank you.
No, very good. Councillors, we'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 50 of the agenda, item 18, urgent business not included on the agenda nor received. Is there any urgent business arising since the agenda was published? Excuse me, no. Item 19, close of meeting, which I will now do at 4:26 p.m. Thank you very much.